Good afternoon and welcome to our AmeriCorps Seniors, the Senior Companion Program session of our fiscal year 21 FGP-SCP Expansion Competition Series. Let's get started with some quick housekeeping notes. Of course, all lines are on mute and will remain on mute throughout the course of the call, which means that if you have questions at any time, please let us know in the Q&A pod. If you're having technical problems, you can let us know in the chat, making sure to send it to all panelists and attendees. And then the audio is being broadcasted online and by phone. If you're having an issue with one way, try the other. And lastly, this session is being recorded. If you do not wish to be recorded, you can disconnect at any time. And the recording, the slides, and transcript will be made available on the competition website, which you have a link to here on this page. My name is Ann Oti, and I'm the Senior Program Officer for Training and Knowledge Management on the AmeriCorps Seniors team. I'm joined today by my colleague Courtney Sutton, who you might see in the Q&A pod answering questions. I do want to make a note here about questions. We're a really small group, which is nice for answering questions. So we'll try to get to everyone's questions today. But if I am not able to get to your questions today, please feel free to reach out to the 2021 FGP-SCP at cns.gov mailbox and also check the website. Here is our calendar of sessions for this training series. We will round it up for cycle 1 next Monday with how to submit your application in our electronic grants management system. So for our last preliminary, we've got our poll question. So I will ask our webinar producer to pull up our first poll. We want to know whether your organization has received a federal grant before, including one from AmeriCorps. Awesome, thank you. For our next question, we would like to know how well you know AmeriCorps Seniors, formerly known as Senior Corps. Looks like we've got a great array of people on the line. For the next question, how would you describe the primary field of your organization? And I want you to choose the one that best describes you. All right, one more second. I see people moving around their answers. Awesome. We've got another question for you. How did you hear about us? Great, thank you. And then for our last question, have you attended any of our other webinars in this series? Awesome, thank you very, very much. Well, let us look at our agenda for today. So it is our goal that by the end of the session, you're going to understand if the AmeriCorps Seniors Senior Companion Program is right for you and your organization and be able to develop a realistic, complete application for the Senior Companion Program grant. We do have some folks who this is their first time with us and that they are new to AmeriCorps, the agency, and AmeriCorps Senior. So we'll do a quick refresher on competition basics before diving in on more about the Senior Companion Program. And we're also going to take a look at national performance measures and some program examples. So starting off with competition basics, AmeriCorps Seniors is currently accepting applications for AmeriCorps Seniors Foster Grandparent Program and Senior Companion Programs. You can go into our system, begin your application, and even submit your application at any point between now and 5 p.m. Eastern on February 3rd, 2021. For this competition in particular, we are looking to expand into the geographic service areas listed on Appendix A. On this map, in green, you will see all of the states in which there are open counties for the Senior Companion Program, the AmeriCorps Seniors Senior Companion Program. And when you open the actual document of Appendix A, you're going to see a table that looks just like this, which shows you all of the open funding opportunities. We'll talk more later today about how you'll use this document, but just know for now that it is important. Here are some other resources to help you in this process of applying to our programs. The Notice of Funding Opportunity, or NOFO, which is your gateway into the competition. It establishes competition and the application requirements and answers a lot of questions that you might have. We've got grant application instructions that are a step-by-step guide to navigating eGrants, our electronic grants management system. And actually our next session is going to mimic the grant application instructions a bit. Appendix A, which I've referred to, Appendix B, the National Performance Measure instructions. We've got the work plan development worksheets, which allow you to plan your work plans outside of our eGrants system. And then of course, the frequently asked questions that we do update throughout the process based on the questions that you send to 2021 FGP-SCP at cns.gov. And you can find all of these resources on the competition page. So that gets our basics out of the way, and we can dive into the AmeriCorps Seniors Senior Companion Program itself. So on the screen, you should see a screenshot from the SCP, AmeriCorps Seniors Senior Companion Program, NOFA, Notice of Funding Opportunity. It explains the purpose of the program, and there's a dual purpose. One, engaging people 55 and older, particularly those with limited incomes, and in volunteer service to meet critical community needs and to provide a high quality experience that will enrich the lives of volunteers. Programs support the programs that support AmeriCorps Senior volunteers in the Senior Companion Program, and they provide supportive individuals. They provide support to individuals who help older adults keep their dignity and independence. That is the purpose of the program. So there are a few things that we can pull out and talk about. You know, we talk about the idea of engaging individuals 55 and older in service, but then also providing high quality experience to the volunteers themselves. And then the second is the specific purpose on focusing on volunteers with limited income. And we'll talk about how that plays out later. But finally, providing support of individualized service to help older adults maintain independence and their dignity. So those four principles combined create the AmeriCorps Seniors Senior Companion Program as we know it. We can start by thinking about our volunteers. Volunteers in this program do not have the specific focus to provide opportunities to serve for those who are of limited income. So in general, anyone over the age of 55 may serve as a volunteer. However, for those who come from under 200% of the poverty level, they are eligible to serve with a small stipend for their service. Right now, the stipend is at $3 an hour, and that is relatively new. The stipend increased from $2.65 to $3 earlier this year. The idea is that we've got a lot of research that we talk about during these sessions that show that volunteers who are a part of this program and have access to these opportunities show increased health benefits. We've got other potential cost reimbursements as well, like the supplemental insurance, meals, transportation, recognition, that help to provide the opportunity for folks who might not be able to serve otherwise. If you are looking at these cost reimbursements and thinking to yourself, well, how do I figure out, what counts as income and how do I go about getting this check? We do have some resources that can help you that I want to share. In the chat, we're adding 2 links. One goes to the Manage AmeriCorps Seniors page. The other one goes to ecfr.gov, which is the electronic code of federal regulations. The first, the Manage AmeriCorps Seniors grants page is where we have operational resources available to current grantees. There's a lot there, but I would draw your attention to the section that says program handbooks and supplements. So our current grantees use this to manage their grants, and it's got the answers hopefully to about any kind of practical operational question that you might have. And there are public resources available to you that you can use as a part of this process. And then, of course, we've also got the Code of Federal Regulation itself. The specific code for the Senior Companion Program is 45 CFR 2551, 2551 SCP. This is the official rulebook for the Senior Companion Program from the federal government. Many of you are familiar with this. We have about 50% of the folks on the call are current grantees. It's a series of questions and answers. And when you apply for the program, you are agreeing to abide by all of these different rules. So if you were interested in learning more about income guidelines for a stipend, which we have circled on the screen right now, you could click on that. So 45 CFR 2551.43, and you would find the answer. We'll move on to the next topic of volunteer stations. So if you go and look at the Code of Federal Regulations, you can find the technical definition of a station, but to simplify it, it is where volunteers serve, where your AmeriCorps Seniors volunteers will serve. This often is organizations that we will see partnered with assignments, beneficiaries working with the grantee on an assignment plan, providing any necessary orientation and training for that assignment, and providing supervision and reporting it back to the sponsor, making sure volunteers are safe and secure. The station has oftentimes direct access to a client population that needs the kind of support that the AmeriCorps Senior Companion Program can provide. Often, those are external organizations who are bound by a memorandum of understanding with the sponsor grantee. They don't actually have to be a sponsor or a grantee or an organization to serve as the station. But oftentimes as well, we've got sponsors and grantees who their organization also serves as a station. And the volunteers who serve at those sites, those stations, follow this code, this regulation, 45 CFR 2551.71, in determining what their assignments are. So we can see the criteria here for what an appropriate senior companion assignment would be. There's a lot of text on the screen, but I'll summarize. So they result in person-to-person supportive relationships with each client, support at the achievement and maintenance of the highest independent living for their clients, are meaningful to the senior companion, and they are supported by appropriate organization and training. Senior companion shall not provide services such as those given by medical personnel, large number of clients, custodial services, administrative support services, or other services. The focus is on that person-to-person supportive role. We are looking at one-to-one relationships, and oftentimes that is in the context of homes. So person-to-person supportive relationships to help boost independent living. We've defined what a station is, but I do want to reiterate that sponsor and grantee are terms that we use interchangeably, and that is the organization that receives funding from AmeriCorps seniors. They are the ones who are legally responsible for the operation of the grant. For those of you who are visual learners, we've got two graphics that kind of show how that plays out. So on the screen, we have an example of what an AmeriCorps Seniors Senior Companion Program that focuses on multiple issues or has multiple external partners would look like. So we've got AmeriCorps Seniors giving the funds to the sponsor, and then the sponsor going out and recruiting volunteers and placing them at those external stations, those other organizations. And the volunteers could be serving in a variety of ways. And then on the second slide, we've got a graphic of what it would look like if the volunteers were serving at the sponsoring organization. So AmeriCorps Seniors could make a grant to the sponsor that runs its own programs and might be very, very focused, working only in one very specific area or doing one specific service activity. All right, let's move on to talk about performance measures. Again, I welcome you to add any questions that you might have to the Q&A pod. So we've got a question for you all. Why do we measure performance? Why are we interested in measuring performance? And if you were in yesterday's session, you were able to cheat and maybe add some bullets to the chat. Let me know in the chat. Why do we measure performance? Why is AmeriCorps, the agency, interested in performance? Any ideas? Make sure to send it to all panelists and attendees so everyone can see. To evaluate the use of funds to know how to improve. It's a good one. Any other ideas? All right. So all in all, we're a federal program and we have to be stewards of taxpayer dollars. That comes with a lot of responsibilities. Oh, I see some more. Show program success for future funding opportunities. To be sure we are providing the service we state we are going to give, to see that the resources are used properly toward the stated objectives. That is all correct. These are great answers. And we really do take that responsibility seriously. So why do we measure performance? Definitely all of the things that you all said, I see to improve came into through the chat, accountability, improvement. It also helps us identify things that can be replicated or scaled up and done elsewhere. You know, we can take what an AmeriCorps senior companion grantee is doing in one side of the country and scale it up and compare it to a program on the other end of the country and really scale up all of that data to tell the overall story of service. Or if there's something that's going really well, be able to adapt it and replicate it elsewhere. And what's unique, it's a unified measurement of these performance measures, and it's all across not just AmeriCorps seniors, but all of the AmeriCorps programs as well. So as I alluded to, the specific system we use to do that is called the National Performance Measures, a very uniform set of measures. So we'll look at a menu of measures and everybody in the national service community uses some version of those measures. And that allows us to measure and assess your effectiveness and communicate it. And then it also supports our ability to tell a unified story of service. They are made up of a number of different components. So we'll walk through all of those, starting at the bottom with focus area. So while the agency has 6 focus areas, the primary focus area for the Senior Companion Program is Healthy Futures. So you must program VSYs, those volunteer service years, into a Healthy Futures work plan. Objectives, the next category, it is a general category within each of the focus areas. For Healthy Futures, there are 2, aging in place and access to care. And then with output and outcome, we get into specific measures for each objective. Those are reflected in the output and the outcome, excuse me. And, I like to say that the way to differentiate them is like the output is like a seed and outcome is the flower that blossoms from the seed. You're really going to work with a certain number of individuals, but most likely, most of the time, not all of the individuals are going to actually achieve that social outcome that they are looking for. In our line of work, it's sometimes rare. We get the 100% success rate where we were trying to move someone into a new way of life to create some kind of change. So the people we are working with, that is the output, and then the number of people who experience the change is the outcome. So we've got an example here from Healthy Futures. H4A, the output, number of individuals served, paired with H9A, the outcome, number of individuals who report having increased social support or improved capacity for independent living. A work plan is a specific part of the application. It is a table that mimics the logic model. And then a national performance measure work plan is a work plan that results in an output and an outcome specified by the AmeriCorps national performance measures. On the screen, you should see a screenshot of our work plan development worksheets. One of the tools that I mentioned at the top, the work plans are a specific part of eGrants, our electronic grants management system. It's a specific part of your application, and they are built, structured, and constructed. It's not a narrative. It's not just a blank space where you can write what you want. Instead, you need to provide specific information in these specific columns. And of course, it'll look different inside the actual system, but this tool gives you the ability to experiment and draft so that you can ultimately copy and paste into eGrants. We'll change gears a little bit, looking at our fictional Appendix A, list of funding opportunities, and our example throughout the couple of weeks of our fictional stay in Verona. And just reiterate that you really get to determine what you serve. You get to propose to us whatever it is that you think will make the biggest impact in your community. You get to propose the geographic service area, how many counties you want grouped together. You get to propose the funding amount, and you get to propose the number of VSYs, volunteer service years. Regardless of the funding request, all applicants are required to follow the calculation of 1 VSY for every $6,500 in funding request. I've been sharing this week. I know people like to start at the total federal funding and work their way back to VSY. I like to do it the opposite way. So looking at this proposed geographic service area of Montague and Capulet counties, perhaps we think 40 VSYs is what we need to have the greatest impact. We would multiply that by 6,500, and we would get a total of $260,000. For those of you who start from the total federal funding that you're going to request, one thing to point out, so if you go the opposite way, $260,000 divided by 6,500, you would get the 40 VSYs. 40 VSYs is the minimum amount of service that you can propose to have in the geographic service area that you are proposing. So in addition to the $6,500 telling you how much your total funding can be per VSY, we also use it to describe something called the cost per VSY threshold. And so for every $6,500 in annual base federal funding, at least one VSY, one volunteer service year, must be placed into work plans that result in national performance measure outcomes in the Healthy Futures focus area. So in our case where we have 40 VSYs times the 6,500, those 40 VSYs we must program into national performance measure outcomes, work plans that result in national performance measure outcomes in the Healthy Futures focus area. Appendix B is the National Performance Measure instructions. There is one for each of the AmeriCorps Seniors programs. So you would look at the Senior Companion Program one specifically. And when you look at it at the top, we've got tables where it breaks it down, kind of how we had the pyramid, into the focus area and then the objectives and the specific output and outcome pairings that fall into that objective. And so you get to see that sometimes there's an output with one single outcome, like an access to care, or there's an output that has two potential outcomes that you can select from in aging in place. And as you scroll through the document, you will see definitions that go along with certain outputs and outcomes, and then different ways that you can track and measure and collect data. In the Senior Companion Program, the AmeriCorps Senior Companion Program, there is a mandatory instrument for collecting data, the Senior Corps Independent Living Study, or survey, not study, the Senior Corps Independent Living Survey. And you can find that link in the Appendix B performance measure instructions. So we've got our 40 VSYs. We know that we have to program 40 VSYs into work plans that result in a Healthy Futures outcome. So we've taken a stab at it here as an example where we had one work plan where the output H4A number of individuals served was paired with the outcome number of caregivers of older adults and individuals with disabilities who reported having increased social support, and we placed 25 VSYs there. And then we've got the other outcome here in our second work plan, number of individuals who report having increased social support or improved capacity for independent living. And we placed 15 VSYs here. One point that I do want to make is that when you look in eGrants in the work plans, you are not going to see VSYs as a column. What you will see is unduplicated volunteers. And I want you to know that unduplicated volunteers equals VSYs for your program. It's really not intuitive, but eGrants is a legacy computer system that we have. So if you see unduplicated volunteers in the system, think VSYs. For the AmeriCorps Seniors Foster Grandparent and Senior Companion programs, we are counting hours and not people. So that's one quirk. It's written into the resources that you will see, but hopefully you're able to navigate that. And we've come to this portion. What do you all think determines a successful application? You can let me know in the chat. What determines a successful application? Any ideas? Outcomes that fill the needs of the community. I like that answer. Any other thoughts? Ability to manage the grant funds, meaning outcomes and outputs established in the grant. Scalable, replicable, these are good. Awesome. Solving an existing problem in promoting healthy futures for seniors. All great answers. Progress. Submitted on time and according to the NOFO application directions. That is a good segue. So we've got the answer in the NOFO, the Notice of Funding Opportunity. So on the screen, we've got a screenshot straight from page 10 of the AmeriCorps Senior Companion Program Notice of Funding Opportunity, where you can find application review information and review criteria. We are giving you the specific criteria that our reviewers will use to evaluate your application. This is primarily what determines a successful application, and then we provide some more detail about what all of that means. But as you can see, the work plan does play a significant role in all of that, and the way that you reflect national performance measure instruction. So it's really important to take the work that you want to do, the impact that you see, and translate it into AmeriCorps Senior Companion Program, so to speak, really translating it into our performance measures. So that concludes our prepared content for today. We do have a video. We went into the archives to pull this one. So I'm going to invite you to add your questions to the Q&A. We'll switch up the screens a little bit with Jeff and play the video, and then we'll come back and start our Q&A session.
Julio is a man that's been independent most of his life. When you get to a certain age, you need help from somebody, and that's where a senior companion comes in to help out. I've been with Julio for 4 years. I guess he got used to me in a lot of ways. You know, he depends on me a lot. My dad and my mom always taught us to help somebody else, somebody that needed help. One day he broke a finger, and I told him, I said, Julio, you have to go to emergency. I said, don't worry, I'm going with you. I knew he needed help. I knew he didn't want to be alone, but I was there with him. And I made him happy because of that. It goes both ways. It helps him, it helps me.
I got sick one Saturday and I didn't want to alarm my family, so I called her and she came over. She called 911. I stayed in the hospital 3 days, and when I came home, every morning she wants to know, could she do anything? So when she found out what I was doing with the beads, she offered to come stay with me a few hours at nighttime, and I showed her how to make the beads, and she's been a great help.
I do things for her that she's not able to do, you know, like combing her hair and like getting her clothes upstairs to wash them in the washing machine, those kind of things. And that's what I help her out in doing. We're very close.
Euphemia seems like a daughter to me, really.
I take her to the drugstore, and I do some cooking if I don't hear from her, you know, looking at her. So her daughter seems to be very thankful for that.
My daughter feels very good about it, knowing that she has somebody that would contact her or somebody I can contact in the event that I'm sick.
There's a lot of people that do need some help. You know, instead of just sitting there, come out and get involved.
When I first started working with Maria Luisa, she was a different person altogether. Now she is very, very good at carrying on a conversation with me. Now she sings, she dances.
When Amelia came to us last year, we suspected that she'd be a good fit for Maria Luisa and her family. And this is a letter of appreciation that Maria Luisa's daughter has written. Mrs. Baldini is very caring. Her love, professionalism, and responsibility have changed the critical situation we had at our house due to my mother. I really can say that it has been a miracle.
As soon as I get there, she's waiting there for me. And we go into her room and we do some exercises or things with her that she wants to do. Then we'll go to the bakery. They treat her wonderful there. I feel like I've grown a lot, and I think that she has grown a lot with me because she does so many things, and I'm so proud of her.
Senior Companions are the greatest group of volunteers. Without us, seniors who are frail and need help could not continue to live in their homes. Families get respite, and volunteers prove their value to the community. This is an innovative, cost-effective program that has real impact.
Awesome, thank you. So I'll encourage you all to add your questions to the Q&A pod. It looks like we've got a couple that have come in. We have a question about excess that I saw. I encourage you to take a look at the frequently asked questions because we have it written out more in depth, but in general, the excess column of the budget can be used to reflect the amount of non-federal cash and in-kind contributions that are generated by the sponsor or grantee in excess of what is the required percentage. I see a question about non-stipended volunteers, but I don't see, it looks like it's a second part of the question and I don't see the first part of the question. Shaya, do you mind adding your first part again? Sorry. Feel free to continue to add questions to the Q&A pod. If a volunteer does not meet the 200% of poverty level, can they still volunteer and does it count towards the grant volunteer numbers? So when you're reporting back to us during their 2 reports in a year, you'll be able to count them there, but they do not count as a VSY, a volunteer service year. Those are stipended hours. No problem. Any other questions, folks? It doesn't have to be specific to the Senior Companion Program. While we wait for more questions to come in, I will ask Jeff to add our poll. I saw a question about additional documents, having sent in additional documents, but it not showing as sent in eGrants. You will have to manually update the document section of eGrants even after you have sent each document. So it doesn't automatically update. You've got to manually update that part of the application. Any other questions you might have about the Senior Companion Program or Foster Grandparent Program or AmeriCorps and AmeriCorps Seniors? Ask the agency receiving the funds, can we match seniors with individuals we already serve who could use the assistance, or does that have to happen through a site? So ask the agency or the organization receiving the funds. Your organization can serve as the station as well. You are welcome, Tara. And that goes along for both programs, both foster grandparent and senior companion programs. Any other questions? What is a work plan? The work plan is a part of the grant application that shows how your volunteers are going to serve. It's kind of like a logic model with an output and outcome. You describe the community need and show how you're going to place those volunteer service years. If your county is not on Appendix A, can you apply for another county? You may apply for another county that is listed on Appendix A, even if your organization isn't actually in that county. However, you must serve the county that you are applying to serve with those funds if awarded. Can I speak more about reports? Sure. So progress reports, there are two progress reports, well, two formal progress reports, and then we have a supplemental report that you have to do annually. The two that I said that were formal have to do more so on what you are telling us that you are applying to serve on your application. And then the third one, which is a supplement, is more demographical data about the volunteers that are serving. And then we also have the fiscal reports as well. Any other questions? Since VSYs are just for stipend and volunteers, how does that affect how much a potential grantee can apply for? So in the NOFA, we say that for each VSY that you are applying for, that's $6,500. Or from the total federal funding that you have, it's one VSY per $6,500. A volunteer service year is technically 1,044 stipended hours. Any other questions? Can the stipended hours be shared between two persons? Yes. So if you look at our guidance, you will see the minimums and maximum amounts individuals can serve. One VSY could be 2 or 3 or 4 people actually serving. One VSY could actually relate to one person's service. It comes from the average. If a volunteer were to serve 20 hours a week for 52 weeks. You can continue to add your questions to the Q&A pod. I see a couple more questions about determining how much federal funding to request. So you can request what best suits your needs for the service location you're proposing to serve. Regardless of that funding request, all applicants are required to follow the calculation of one VSY, one volunteer service year, for every $6,500 in funding requested. So in our example, we had 40 VSYs and multiplied that by $6,500, and that gave us our $260,000. And those 40 VSYs would translate to stipended volunteers. One VSY is 1,044 hours. An organization may apply for less than 40 VSYs. But it would be the maximum amount of funding that you can request is whatever number of VSYs times $6,500 to get the maximum amount of funding that you can request. I see a question. We are in Florida and only a station of 14 VSYs. Would we get assistance to go up to the next level of having stations under us? Yeah, you can propose to request whatever number of VSYs that you would like and propose to place them in stations outside of your organization, should that be the model that you wish to follow. Any other questions? You may have done stipended volunteers, but the funding that you're requesting and the number of VSYs that you are requesting are associated with stipended volunteers. All right, not seeing any other questions. We will stop here for the day. I do encourage you to send questions to 2021 FGP-SCP at cns.gov. Should you come across anything as you're working through your application, our next session will be at the same time on Monday, and we will walk through submitting an application in the electronic grants management system, eGrants. So with that, I wish you a great afternoon, and I will talk to you on Monday. Have a great day.